The early 1970s were a strange, shifting time in America. The country was still reeling from Vietnam, Watergate had shattered public trust, and the glossy optimism of the 60s had faded into something darker, a mix of fear, fascination, and cynicism. The economy was shaky, gas prices were high, and for the first time many Americans were questioning whether the American dream was really the safe suburban promise they had been sold. It was also a golden age for horror. The genre was changing, becoming grittier, more psychological, and disturbingly real. Films like The Exorcist in '73, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in '74, and Halloween in '78 were redefining what it meant to be scared. Evil wasn't some far-off monster anymore. It was in your own home, in your neighborhood, and in your mind. And that's exactly why the story of Amityville hit so hard. In November 1974, a quiet coastal town on Long Island, New York, was rocked by a horrific crime, the DeFeo family murders at 112 Ocean Avenue. A year later, the new owners, George and Kathy Lutz, claimed the house was haunted by voices, cold spots, and an evil presence they couldn't explain. Their story became a media sensation, spawning a book in 1977 and then a blockbuster film in 1979, The Amityville Horror, which terrified audiences and went on to become one of the highest-grossing independent films of its time. It blurred the line between fact and fiction and cemented the house in American pop culture forever. But behind the movie deals and ghost stories lies a chilling question. What really happened in that house on Ocean Avenue? In this episode, we're going to strip back the legend and look at the real Amityville Horror.
I'm Darlene.
And I'm Melody.
This is Hard Times and True Crimes. So everybody who came out to the Fall Festival, it was so nice meeting y'all. We got to meet several of you, and we just really appreciate y'all coming out and stopping by my daughter-in-law's candle table, and we had some shirts out there, and just, it was great to meet you all.
Yes, thank you. We love all the support.
Guys, if you want to support the show, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast through, whatever platform you're listening through. And be sure to rate and review us if that's an option on your platform. But we really appreciate you guys listening.
Okay, have you ever seen the movie The Amityville Horror?
No.
Okay, well, when it first came out, I was too young. But over the years, it comes on TV.
Right.
So I did catch parts of it on TV as a child, and it scared me to death.
Sure.
And
Amityville Horror.
Yeah, it's about that house.
Yeah, no. Haven't you done that one?
Mm-mm.
Which one did you do about a house?
I did The Real Exorcist. Well, I haven't done this one, I promise.
No, I know. Maybe I just heard it somewhere else.
Maybe.
Was it about brothers?
Mm-mm.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe I'm probably thinking of the wrong story. I'm so sorry. We're alive, or not live, but anyway.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so I'm going to share with you today the real story behind the movie, The Amityville Horror, and I promise I've never done this one before. So, on December 18th, 1975, George and Kathy Lutz moved into their new home at 112 Ocean Drive in Amityville, New York. The couple was newly married, and George was planning to adopt Kathy's 3 children from a previous marriage. Those children were Daniel, age 9, Christopher, age 7, and Melissa, or they called her Missy, aged 5. They had married in July, and both had their own homes at the time, and they sold those homes so that they could purchase a house together and kind of just start the marriage fresh,
Okay.
And they had gotten this house at a bargain. And they had paid only $80,000 for this Dutch colonial. It was a nice home.
That is nice. And a nice price.
Oh, yes. It had a distinctive Gramble roof, 6 bedrooms, 3.5 baths.
Wow.
A heated pool. and even a boathouse off of the canal off the Long Island Sound.
Oh, my gracious.
So now that 80,000 sounds really cheap.
Well, yeah, and especially like the location.
Right, because that's all what's important in real estate. Well, perhaps the reason they got such a great bargain is that the real estate agent did disclose to them that just the year before, a family of 6, the DeFeo family, had been murdered in the home.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think I'm familiar with this story.
Okay, good. I'm glad you haven't heard it. I'm sure that's why they got such a bargain in the home, but they talked about it, and George and Kathy decided they weren't bothered by that enough and they were like, we're going to close this deal.
Right.
Couldn't pass that up. They did, however, decide, well, we better play it safe. And so they had a priest come and bless the home before they moved in it.
Okay.
Now, the priest, he was referred to as Father Mancuso, but that's like a pseudonym.
Okay.
He didn't tell the couple that while he was blessing the home, when he went upstairs and he flicked the holy water and began to pray, he heard this masculine voice demand him to leave.
Oh my gosh.
And felt a slap to his face from some invisible force.
Oh my gosh. Why would he not have disclosed that?
I'm not sure. Now, I do want to put a little note here. There are variations of that story over the years. There was an interview with the man who said he was that priest, and that was his claim of what happened. But in the interview, he did not show his face, and we can only assume that this person was telling the truth.
I gotcha. Okay. I know what's thinking about now. The one with the ant.
Yeah, that was the exorcism.
That was the exorcist. Okay.
Because there was some crazy stuff in that house. Very similar, actually. Although he left without mentioning it, the priest did call back a few days later and tell them they probably should stay out of the bedroom on the second floor where he had heard that voice. But that phone call was cut short by static. It was reported. Now, again, some of these things get hyped up after the fact.
Of course. But
it was reported after that visit that Father Mancuso developed a fever and blisters on his hands similar to stigmata. Do you know what stigmata is?
I don't.
I didn't either until I researched this story. I had to look it up. But supposedly that's like the places where Jesus' scars were in his hands. So it sounds a little superstitious type. Catholicism, superstition, a little bit. And a lot of stuff gets hyped up after the fact.
Of course.
So you take that little nugget for whatever you want to take it for. It could just be also that the media later embellished that.
Sure. No, I don't believe they would do that. Not the media.
Surely not. So almost immediately after the family moved in, they began experiencing strange phenomena. Windows opening, strange noises, especially at night, cold spots in the house, and the kids were beginning to get scared, obviously. George, he seemed off. He was kind of depressed, not his normal self.
This is the dad?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of aloof and kind of just shutting himself off. There was just like this feeling of oppression in the home. And by mid-January, so not even a whole month later, the couple, they tried once more to have the house blessed, but it didn't help. So 28 days after moving in, the family left the home, leaving their belongings behind. They just couldn't take the paranormal activity anymore.
Wow. Okay, so they just left.
They left.
Okay.
Left the house to the bank.
Which is so sad because, buying a house is such a fun experience. And I'm sure that's not what they had anticipated at all.
Right. I mean, they got the new marriage, new house. This was not, I'm sure, in the plans.
Wow.
Of course, it became widely publicized.
Sure.
Stuff like that does not go unnoticed. And the couple was telling everybody what had happened and what they had experienced.
Okay.
And so it wasn't long before an author by the name of Jay Anson, who had listened to over 45 hours of recordings by the Lutzes telling about their ordeal, spurred him to write their story. So he wrote that, and he detailed their experience in his book, which eventually was made into a movie that we know today as the Amityville Horror.
Okay.
Remember how I told you that the Lutzes' house had a family murdered in it just a year prior to them moving in?
Yes.
So let me take you back and recount the dreadful event that took the lives of the DeFeo family. The DeFeo family was a family of 7. Ronald DeFeo, 43, his wife Louise, 42, their son Ronald Jr., who was 23, daughter Dawn, 18, Allison, 13, Mark, 11, and John Matthew was 9.
Gosh, that's so sad.
And they were the family that lived in this house at Ocean Drive in this affluent part of Long Island. They had moved there from Brooklyn 9 years before because this was a quiet place to raise a family.
Right.
Now, Ronald Sr., he had a management position at the Buick Auto dealership, which was owned by his father-in-law, Michael Brigante. And I don't know what that job paid, but it must have been pretty good, especially if you're working for your father-in-law.
Sure.
Because they lived an upper middle class to rich lifestyle. I mean, again, they got this house with this heated pool.
Yeah.
And it was said that theirs was the nicest house in the neighborhood. Now, rumors had it that Louise's father had given them $50,000 to pay for that. They paid $75,000 for the house, and that her father had given them $50,000 of that.
Okay.
This home had a shrine in the front yard. This was a very devout Catholic family.
Okay.
So there was this shrine in the front yard of St. Joseph clutching the infant Jesus, and then it was encircled by these adoring angels. And then the signpost in the front yard that displayed the house name, High Hopes.
Wow.
Most of the neighbors thought very highly of this close-knit, devout Catholic family. But one neighbor did say later that Mrs. DeFeo had a mouth like a longshoreman, especially when she yelled at the neighborhood kids.
Oh, gosh.
That was life in the 70s.
Yes.
Sorry. I mean,
we all had those neighbors.
yeah, they're like, if your friend's mom didn't yell at you too, were you even friends, right?
Right.
My mama one time spanked one of the neighborhood kids.
Really?
She did. The girl was like in the 5th grade, and I was in kindergarten, and she scratched my arm. Anyway, my mama went and found her in the neighborhood and switched her legs.
Is hilarious.
Yeah, those were the days.
That would not happen today, would it?
She'd probably be arrested for that today. But back then, that was,
yeah.
I'm sure my mama is not the only one that ever spanked a neighborhood kid.
No.
Sometimes I wish we could go back to those days.
Me too, because I would love to spank some neighborhood kids.
So there are conflicting accounts about whether this was a truly normal, loving family or if there was an undercurrent of turbulence in the home.
Okay.
Depending on who you ask, Mr. DeFeo was either described as a quiet man who would do anything for his kids, or this Italian-American man who has the temper to go with it and could become violent very quickly. Some said most of his anger was taken out on his namesake, Ronald Jr., who went by the name Butch at home. And if that's true, then not only was Ronnie bullied by his father at home, but as an adolescent, he was also bullied at school due to being, he was a little bit chubby, and people at school would call him names like Fatso and the Blob. And from here on out, I'm going to refer to the son as Ronnie. So
Okay.
Ronald Jr., I'm going to call him Ronnie, and then the dad, Ron Sr.
Okay.
Ronnie soon found a way to deal with the harassment he was dealing with. He turned to alcohol and drugs, particularly amphetamines. And as a result of the amphetamines, he dropped a lot of that extra weight by the time he was in high school. Ronnie was a bit of a rabble-rouser. He was continually being thrown out of one school or another until he finally just dropped out and went to work with his father at the dealership. I mean, when your grandpa owns the place,
Yeah, why not?
And so he rarely showed up to work because he didn't really have to.
Right.
He had a secure job, I guess, whether he had earned it or not. But he did have some legal troubles, and he was getting in scrapes with the law, and he was once arrested for grand larceny. He had stolen an outboard motor from someone.
Okay.
Other descriptions of Ronnie were wild and undisciplined. His parents really couldn't do much with him, and although he would have like these tremendous fights with them sometimes, he also depended on them for monetary support and help when he got in trouble.
Sure.
And they did help. His parents, they tended to give him whatever he wanted, maybe in an effort to keep peace in the family, hoping it would settle him down, keep him happy. And spoiler alert, it didn't.
We talk about these types of kids all the time.
Don't we see it a lot?
All the time.
In a lot of these cases. It's almost
Yes.
like this thread that runs through them.
Yeah.
And Ronnie actually felt like his younger siblings, they're always being doted on while he's getting picked on. And he let his parents know he didn't care for that.
Okay.
But it could be they just didn't give them the trouble that he did.
Yeah. Or you're going to get yelled at more or punished more if you're the one causing issues in the family.
Right. So newspaper reports quote that some neighbors were saying that quite the opposite of that Ronnie could do no wrong in his parents' eyes. Depending, again, on who you ask, somebody would say, oh, he was causing grief at every turn.
Okay.
And I think we see that a lot of times on news stories. You have one neighbor saying one thing and another saying another thing. And I'm sure that truth is somewhere there in the middle.
Sure.
One of Ronnie's friends said there was nothing that he wanted that his dad didn't get for him. He had a fairly new car every year, which, again, his grandpa owned the dealership.
Right.
But he would get a new boat every couple of years. They said his two big kicks in life were cars and boats.
Okay. And how old was he? I'm sorry. Remind me of
This
that.
was as he's going through as a teenager.
Okay.
By the time of the incident, he was 23.
Okay.
Okay. But all through high school, cars and boats and drugs.
Right.
The cars and boats actually reminded me of my son Titus, because that's his two big kicks in life, cars and boats.
And when you throw amphetamines on top of that, like that can really, they can make you mean.
Okay, so see, there you go. That's not a very good combination, especially if you're getting money just at every turn. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a lot of issues with kids with ADHD as they turn into teenagers, because essentially, I mean, they're being given synthetic cocaine, I guess, I mean, that's what they're given, amphetamine. And so
It's a scary thought, isn't it?
it is.
I mean, it really should concern us more than it does, I think.
Well, you see a lot of kids who have been on this medication, they'll need it through school. And so they'll stay really thin and do really good. And then they get off of it maybe once they don't need it anymore, and they'll gain a lot of weight or, just have like continual issues after that, where some of them will. I know one particular person who that happened to, and then he became a serious hardcore drug addict, because I really think he was a drug addict
His body was addicted to needing that drug. Mm-hmm. I know someone like that as well, a few someones actually. And I'm not saying that they don't have ADHD.
Right.
I'm just saying the way that it's medicated, could a lot of the issues from it could be alleviated if they had a better diet and were on a bedtime routine and not staying up half the night and having unlimited access to screens. So Ronnie, he was known to flash cash around in front of his friends, and at times
that guy.
He was that guy. At times he would go into the local bar and buy a round of drinks for everybody in there. Like he was trying to impress people and buy friends. So yeah, definitely that guy. And it must have worked. He didn't have any problem mixing with the ladies, even with that troubled reputation, maybe because of it. He was 5'7", 155 pounds, usually well dressed. But by the time he was 23, he was growing his hair long. He had a mustache and a beard. He had that 70s look. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And he had a stream of girlfriends. And he was in this time, he really, at 23, he needed to grow up and do something with his life.
Right. It was time.
It was time. But two things were hanging over his head. One was, I told you he had stolen that outboard motor from somebody. So he was on probation for theft.
And why steal when he could probably have had anything he wanted?
Exactly. What even was the point of that? When you could have gone and asked Daddy to buy it for you. The other thing is, he not only had committed some crimes, he had been the victim of a crime. That year, in 1974, in early November, he had been taking a deposit to the bank for the car dealership. Mm-hmm. And while he was stopped at a stoplight, he was held up by this shotgun-waving assailant.
Pooh.
You were going to say that. Well, you are not going to believe this. The robber got away with $1,900 in cash.
Oh my gosh.
And $16,000 in certified checks.
Wow.
And unfortunately, the police never had a suspect in that crime and never found anyone fitting the description of the assailant.
Did they not suspect him? Please say that they did.
I will tell you later that they did.
Okay.
It was just 2 weeks after he was robbed, that incident, when a much more serious crime struck the family. On November 13th, around 6:30 p.m., Ronnie frantically entered Henry's bar, which was down the street from his home, pleading for help. He said, "My father and mother have been shot." Some of his friends were sitting at the bar, and when he came in fact, he had actually been there with them earlier that day, and he had left work early, went to the bar to drink with them, and then he had left before them. And so when he came back to the bar, they were all still hanging out. When he said, "My father and mother have been shot," they quickly jumped up to go with him for help. And there was another guy sitting there. He was like a barfly. His name was John Altieri. And they all quickly jumped in Ronnie's car and headed toward his home. When they got there, the friends stayed with him outside to keep him calm, and John Altieri went in to investigate. He climbed this grand circular staircase alone to the second floor, and he found Ronnie's parents in their master bedroom. They were in a sleeping position on their stomachs, wearing their pajamas, and both had been shot. Gosh. At first glance, he saw a single gunshot to the center of Ron Sr.'s back. Louise was covered with a blanket. It was obvious that she also was shot, but he couldn't see her wound because of the blankets. Eventually, though, it would be found that they had both been shot twice. From there, John looked across the hallway, and he spotted Ronnie's two younger brothers, 11-year-old Mark, 9-year-old John, in their bedroom. They both had one bullet in the back, as they too lay face down on the bed in their bedclothes, covered in blood. The door to the third bedroom on this floor was closed, and John didn't go in. And he did not choose to climb up to the third floor where there was another bedroom. Instead, he came back down, he called the police for help, and went outside to wait with Ronnie and the others. When police arrived, they entered the third bedroom and found younger sister Allison, 13, shot in the back of her head. And 18-year-old sister Dawn in her third floor bedroom, and she was shot in the back of her head as well.
I wonder how somebody would shoot them, because it seems like they were all sleeping.
This is a very good question, and officers have this question because how would they not hear the shots, right?
Yeah,
and then someone else would have woken up. I will talk to you about that in just a minute. Ronnie did have a bedroom in the house, but he had not stayed there the night before. Sometimes he would go hang out at whoever's houses he could.
Right.
But he explained to officers that he had arrived at the house shortly after 6 that day and had found the door locked, and he didn't have his keys. He had managed to get in the house by crawling through an open window at the front of the house and had discovered his parents' bodies when he had gone upstairs.
Okay.
Initial newspapers reported this information that I'm getting ready to tell you. One teen neighbor who lived just a few houses down reported that the night before, they had heard the family's two dogs barking loudly around 3 a.m. the night before. And he did say that was unusual. It had lasted for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Another neighbor told police that around 10 p.m. the night before, she had noticed all the lights in the house were on. And that was odd because usually there was only like 1 or 2 lights or some partially lit up, but the whole house was lit up.
Okay.
Needless to say, the whole neighborhood, of course, is stunned. They couldn't believe this devout, tight-knit Catholic family who seemed like, the perfect family on the outside to most people.
Sure.
Would be massacred in this upscale neighborhood. But in reality, some neighbors were aware that Ronald Sr. had family ties to organized crime.
Okay.
He had a previous conflict with one neighbor in the past and had bragged about being affiliated with the Genovese crime family. And he had threatened to call them in to settle the dispute. And I'll put that in quotation marks.
Yeah.
So not everyone was stunned, but it did shake them up regardless.
Sure. Especially, I'm sure, the kids.
Yes. And it wasn't just a rumor about ties to the crime family. That actually was true. At the scene, Ronald Jr. suggested to police that this could have been a mob hit. It was true that his uncle, Peter DeFeo, had close ties to the mafia. He was pretty high up in that Genovese crime family. I hope I'm saying that name right. And due to this, police decided they were going to take Ronnie to the station for his own safety in case the murderer was not done yet.
Right.
And they also locked down the crime scene to keep intruders out. When Louise's father, Michael Brigante, arrived, they wouldn't allow him in. And of course, he's furious, and he tells the papers, if this was New York City, I would have been in already. And I want to see my daughter before they put her in the bag.
Oh.
Ronnie did go to the police department with investigators, and other officers stayed on the scene to collect evidence. And he went back over his movements that day again, repeating that he had left for work that morning on Wednesday, November 13th. He had come home around lunch, he said, because he forgot his keys. He found the house empty and then left again. And he came back around 6 when he crawled in the window and discovered his parents. Meanwhile, the investigators at the house did find some interesting things. Under Ronald's bed, they found a box of shells for a .35 caliber Martin rifle.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
What an absolute idiot.
Yeah. The officer gathered them up in case it turned out to be important.
Okay.
And it was around this time that officers began noticing a lot of inconsistencies in Ronnie's story. You've probably already picked up on some of them yourself. Mm-hmm. The more he talked, the more small details would change. And when they would question him on the changes, then he would change his story again to fit what he was telling them. Finally, he told them, well, he had been at the house during the murders, but a hitman named Louis Fellini was the killer. He said Louis and an accomplice had tied him up and then gone through the house methodically shooting the family.
But they kept him alive.
Well, that was exactly what the police wanted to know.
Okay.
You should be a police officer, Darlene. Because you are like one step ahead of that, because that's what they were like. Well, why would he keep you alive?
Right.
So then he changed his story again. And he said, well, the hitman had actually held him at gunpoint and made him kill his family.
Oh.
And that they left him alive because I guess it was like a punishment or something. When pressed on that issue, officers like you weren't buying that for a second.
No.
And finally, Ronnie gave in and admitted to the murders.
Oh my gosh.
He confessed to Mark's murder first. He said, I took the rifle and ammunition from my room, and then I shot my brother like this, as he demonstrated for them how he had shot his little brother.
How old is Mark?
9. Oh, Mark. No, I'm sorry. Mark was 11.
That is horrific. 23-year-old.
Yes.
Shooting an 11-year-old.
And he went on to say, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It happened so fast. And during the questioning, there appeared to be no remorse, no grief, no hysteria, just this emotionless tale that he gave them. Ronnie was arrested and charged with 6 counts of second-degree murder. At that time, under New York laws, only people who killed peace officers, like police or prison guards, only they could be charged with first degree. Second degree was considered killing with intent to cause the death of another, the essential ingredient being premeditation.
And he's saying it wasn't premeditated.
Right.
Which I don't believe.
I don't believe either. And it carried a penalty of 15 to 25 years in prison for that second degree. And he was charged with 6 counts of that.
Okay.
I do want to back up and say, you were talking about earlier, none of the neighbors heard the shots.
Right.
And you questioned about the family, like how did they sleep through that?
Right.
And the police also had a question about that. And Ronnie told them that he had drugged his family's food so that they wouldn't wake up.
So then it was premeditated.
You see, his story changes constantly, and it doesn't stop. I'm going to give you some more variations of his story later.
Okay, did he say when he shot his brother Mark was he mad at his brother, or that's just the order that
it was just the order that it went?
Okay.
As I continue the story, some of your questions may be answered, or you may be like me. You may have more questions upon questions because this guy never can give a straight answer.
Golly.
Prosecution would bring evidence to the grand jury. The gun used in the killing was found in Amityville Creek, just a mile from the DeFeo home. It did match the empty ammo boxes found under Ronnie's bed, and the wounds that were inflicted on the family members were from that same rifle.
What an absolute idiot to leave the ammunition under his bed.
I wonder if he maybe wasn't under the influence of drugs, because maybe you're not making great decisions at that point.
Yeah, but I don't care how high you are.
Okay.
You're not going to kill maybe leaving the ammunition under the bed, yes. Yeah. But shooting your whole family because you're under, I just do not believe, unless you're on like them bath salts or whatever. And
Do you think that he just thought he was so smart that he could lie and they'd believe him?
oh yeah, I think he was probably doing it for money, or thought he was going to get some insurance money.
But do you think he thought he was good enough to get away with it?
Oh yeah,
And so he
I'm
just
sure.
didn't.
He probably just forgot about the ammunition being under there. Because what I would have said was, if I was going to say that they forced me, or that they forced me to kill my family or whatever, I would have said they made me. They left that under there to like frame me.
Ah.
If I was gonna lie, I don't think they would have bought that either, because I wouldn't have. But
Right, but
I
still,
would at
it
least
would have
tried.
it still would have been a better, and maybe he did. I don't know, but once again, you're one step ahead, because being the sole survivor of the murders, he stood to benefit $200,000 from this life insurance policy. And you
There we
said you thought maybe for the money, and police did feel strongly that that was his motive.
My gosh, but he just probably robbed his family and got all that money. How many weeks before?
You are ahead of me on every point, because that was my next thing I was going to say. It was 2 weeks before, and police were like, well, we already have serious doubts about you being robbed of this.
Yeah.
All this cash and $16,000 in checks. And so, all of that stuff is exactly what's in their minds. Like, this kid's
Did he
serious.
admit to that?
Oh, no.
Oh,
No.
okay.
But his own confession is what doomed him.
Okay.
Now, police did have some questions about whether he acted alone. It was hard to understand how he could have gone from that bedroom to bedroom shooting each person without them hearing it. And even though he told them that he had drugged the family, when the autopsies were done, they didn't find drugs. So I don't know why he told them that. There was some speculation that had been so much earlier that it was no longer in their system.
Okay.
But really, I don't think they ever found a clear answer, a real answer to that.
Okay. That's interesting.
That crime scene didn't depict any of a struggle. Nobody struggled with their lives or fought for their lives.
Yeah, that's really bizarre that they didn't find any drugs. But I guess nobody did. Didn't have an accomplice if those shells were the ones used in that.
Well, except at one point, he tried to point the finger at his sister Dawn. He claimed that she was the one who had shot the others, and then he had struggled for the gun with her and had shot her. But she was dead. He's alive. He's the only person who could corroborate that story.
And I don't believe that.
No, I don't either. Plus that she's dead now, so he's still the only one guilty at this point.
Yeah, he's just grasping at straws at this point.
He really is. Less than a week after the murders, mourners walked by all 6 coffins of the family members lined up at St. Martin of Tours Church in Amityville. The Reverend James McNamara closed the gathering with these words: I shall not attempt to give any explanation of the tragedy that has brought us here together. Through death, they have been given a new life and have become more like Jesus because they have seen him. He went on, we must not confuse our sorrow with their joy.
And I hope that's true.
I hope
them.
so too. Just hours after that funeral service, the only surviving family member of the DeFeo family, Ronald DeFeo Jr., was indicted by the grand jury on 6 counts of second-degree murder. So the indictment did go through. He entered an innocent plea, of course. And you can probably guess what his attorney is going to try to argue in his defense.
Insanity.
Yes, of course, every time. So, of course, the first thing he wanted was a psychiatric evaluation to see if he was competent to stand trial. And the judge was like, he wanted them to get these expensive, privately paid for from the defense or whatever and the judge was like, no, you can use our psychiatrist. And of course, those 2 psychiatrists found him very sane to stand trial.
And who's paying for his defense?
Well, at first, his grandfather paid for an attorney to begin with, but then he did not continue to pay for an attorney. And so I believe at that point, it was a court-appointed attorney. Actually, it was.
Did his grandfather believe him initially, or he just... I mean, I can't imagine the shock of something like that. That's like the only sole survivor, and he's probably I'm so sorry. No telling what he's telling him. So I wouldn't want to judge that situation, but I just wondered if he believed him or if he just...
It's a good question, and I didn't find the answer to that, so I don't know. But what I do know is that his grandfather did initially pay for his defense and then did not, and he had to get court appointed. So to me, that seems like he probably quickly realized, you did do this.
And for money or whatever.
Right. With this insanity plea, Ronnie claimed that he heard voices telling him to kill his family when he committed the murders. In court, he testified that he was possessed by Satan, and that's who he blamed. I mean, a literal, the devil made me do it defense. But the prosecution psychiatrist, they did diagnose him with antisocial personality disorder, but he was well aware of his actions when he massacred his whole family. Okay, I'm going to give you a little side note here.
Okay.
A month before Ronnie went to trial, his lawyer, that court-appointed lawyer, William Weber, was arrested and charged with a gun charge. He was stopped for a traffic violation, and when they stopped him, it was revealed that he had several other traffic violations against him. And so I guess they ended up doing a search, and they found this .32 caliber pistol under his front seat. So his lawyer had his own legal troubles.
Oh my gosh.
And he sounds a little unscrupulous. And I'm putting that there because we're going to learn a little bit more about him later too.
Okay.
So during the trial, a 9-year-old neighbor, and I think this is pretty brave for a 9-year-old to get on the stand.
Yes, definitely.
But he did. He got on the stand and he testified that once when he was at the DeFeo home, he and the youngest son, John, were playing a game of pool, and Ron Sr. and Ronnie had come down into the basement arguing over some money, and they got into a fist fight. And he saw them pummeling each other with their fists.
Oh, my gosh.
And it scared him and John, so they got out of there pretty quick. So there was that testimony. And then there was more evidence brought forth about Ron Sr.'s temper and violent tendencies.
I would have punched my kid, too, though, if he sold... thousands of dollars.
So you don't have any kind of remorse.
No, I don't think that's mean.
Kid.
I think that's just a parent probably had enough.
Yeah. And so I will say, one of the things he tried to claim was that his motivation was not money, but it was his dad's abuse.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like the Menendez brothers.
Yes. Very similar to that. Apparently, there had been a fight between Ronnie's parents in which his father had hit his mother.
Okay.
And Ron Jr. had gotten a gun and fired it at his dad.
Okay.
It just happened to jam and not go off.
Now, is that him saying that, or that definitely did happen?
It definitely did happen.
Okay.
And perhaps that was a foreshadow of the violence to come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never truly know what goes on behind closed doors.
Oh, no, definitely not.
But either way... When Ronnie's attorney, William Weber, tried to allege that the bruises found on Ron Jr. after his arrest for the killings, because they did find bruises on him.
Okay.
And he tried to say that the police beat the confession out of him, and that those were from the officers, and that they are the ones that got him to confess to the murders.
Okay.
But after that 9-year-old boy testified about the fight he saw, the prosecution slapped back, well, that neighbor boy's testimony might be better explain where those bruises came from.
Right.
So the trial lasted for 7 weeks, from mid-October of 75 to the end of November. The jury was sent out on a Wednesday around 2, and they returned on Friday after lunch. They said they had spent a good amount of that time just re-listening to testimony being reread to them, and they had spent 16 hours in deliberations. In the end, they also rejected that insanity claim.
Okay.
The verdict was handed down for this heinous, abhorrent crime of killing his family, and he was found guilty. Ronald DeFeo Jr. was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences of 25 years each. So essentially up to 150 years in prison.
Good.
As a result of these complex laws concerning sentences like that, he was able to be eligible for parole in as few as 19 years.
That's great. That is crazy.
Well, he didn't get paroled.
Good.
Just so you know.
Well, I feel like too, but I'm thinking even if his dad was beating him every day, well, you're 23.
Yeah.
So move out.
Yes. Not
And
only
there's
that,
no
but
excuse to kill the rest of your family.
that's what I was going to say.
But there's really no excuse to kill your dad either. Like, move
Right.
out.
If you were defending your family members and you killed him in self-defense, that would be a different whole story.
Absolutely.
Or defending your mother.
Yep.
But that's not what happened. You
Nope.
literally killed your whole family.
Yes, while they were sleeping, apparently.
Yes.
The entire family. Yeah, so there's no excuse for him.
None. 2 decades after his sentencing, he appealed for a new trial. And in this time, he alleged that his defense lawyer, Mr. Weber, had coerced him to plead insanity in order to profit from his case. And it was actually a valid try because his lawyer, with his questionable integrity, did actually try to profit from book and movie deals. And I'm going to tell you about that a little bit later, but put a pin in that. Yeah, put a pin in that. While in prison, Ronnie gave interviews over the years to different media outlets several times. And I'm sure you're not going to be surprised to hear that his story changed even in those interviews.
He's probably a pathological liar on top of...
That's exactly what he is.
Narcissistic.
And not even good at it, though. I mean,
Right.
his lies are too obviously proven as a lie. This is when he decided to double down on the idea that Dawn actually did the killing.
Okay.
Then once he claimed that she had done it, and then he had killed her in a rage when he discovered what she had done. Before he had said that he had tried to protect them and they struggled and it went off. Now he's saying he saw that what she had done and it made him so mad so he killed her. And then in 1986, he even tried to accuse his mother of the murders.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's preposterous. So his story just continues to change. While the police believe the motive was monetary, in interviews, he claimed he was just desperate to get away from his father's abuse, which we've already talked about. But some people do buy the version that Dawn was involved due to the fear of her father, because it was reported, and I believe this was brought out in trial, probably from his defense, that traces of gunpowder were found on Dawn's nightgown, suggesting that she may have fired a gun. But that line of questioning was not pursued because Ronnie confessed. And she's dead.
Right.
To make of that what you will.
Unless he had her help him and then... But I mean, if she was dead in her bed, I don't know. I just don't...
They did say it looked like somebody may have turned all the bodies on their stomachs like they were sleeping, because they found it was odd that every single member was asleep on their stomach and the bullet in their back.
Gotcha.
Like maybe they were positioned that way.
After they died?
Well, he still would have had to have shot them in the back.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
But maybe...
Like, were they thinking they were asleep or they were forced on their backs?
They were thinking they were asleep. But again, then you would have to go back to they would have had to have been drugged.
Yeah.
So...
But it's weird.
It is weird. And his story never lines up with what little evidence they have.
And it's just weird that you would have all 6 of them sleeping on their stomachs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. I agree with you. It's weird. That's the DeFeo family story. When Ronnie was sentenced in December of 1975, that was the same month that the Lutz family was actually buying that home. The home called High Hopes, which sounds so...
ironic.
Ironic now.
Yeah.
And, like we said, they were aware of the murders, but hey, it was a great deal on the house. And then I've already told you how they immediately started experiencing strange things. Here are some of the other things that the Lutzes said they experienced in those 28 days. Kathy said some mornings she would wake up looking like a 90-year-old hag, and it would take hours for that to kind of dissipate. George, I told you he had that personality change, and he and Kathy both claimed to have seen 2 red eyes peering at them from an upstairs window.
Oh, wow.
And then they said those things kind of ramped up. Their daughter had this, I guess, this imaginary friend that she said was a pig.
Oh,
and
gosh.
They could see that pig with these red eyes staring at them. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, came that night where they couldn't take it anymore. And what they said happened that night was they felt this presence get in the bed with them, and they were unable to move. And during that time, they could hear their kids' beds slamming up and down on the floors upstairs, dragging across the floors. The lights were flickering.
Gosh.
Their dog vomited. Slime oozed from the walls. And then Kathy supposedly levitated and slid off the bed. All the things you would see in in a Hollywood movie.
Right.
A horror movie.
Right.
And the next morning, the kids, of course, told how terrified they were. They went to stay with Kathy's mother, and then they said the presence followed them there and still taunted them after they left the house. They just wanted out. They had to share that story because it was too crazy not to tell. And then we know about the movie and the book, right? Mm-hmm. That book was released in 1977, and then the movie came out in 1979. But then, in 1988, something else came out.
Okay.
That lawyer,
I knew it was going to have something to do with him.
William Weber, the defense for Ronnie, told media outlets that the whole thing from the Lutzes had been a hoax.
Like, were they in on it together?
He claimed that he had met with George and Kathy over several bottles of wine, and they kind of compared some stories, and that morphed into these wild claims that he says turned up in Jay Anson's book. So he says it was all a hoax.
Okay.
And I will say, people had already been calling into question some of the claims anyway, because there were a lot of inconsistencies in their story.
Like slime down walls. Come on.
Right. Okay. They even said it was almost as if every type of everything you've ever heard from a book or a Hollywood movie had been attributed to what happened in their house. It was like they were getting this from somewhere and just throwing it all in there. Like this happened and this happened and that happened. And
I wonder if they were like genuinely kind of afraid. I mean, I probably would be. Like, if
I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'm gonna answer that question.
And then that morphed.
You're on to something, and I will. I don't know how much we want to trust William Weber because obviously he's got integrity issues, and
Sure.
So later, it was found out that he was embroiled in some kind of a legal battle with them over the story. And so that might have been his reason to try to discredit them.
Okay.
So he's not credible. They may not be credible.
Right.
I mean, there's just a whole lot of lying in this whole story. There was almost as many inconsistencies in the Lutz's claims as there had been in Ron Jr.'s stories about what he had done.
Right.
So some of their inconsistencies were... And a lot of the things that were listed maybe in the book were things that could be checked easily, fact checked.
Right.
So for instance, at one point they talk about these footsteps in the snow, but it was proven there was no snow on that night.
Oh,
okay. There's a description of this full moon, and there was no full moon that night. So things like that, small details.
Right.
That are, again, easily fact checked and found not to be true. And that cast a doubt on all the claims. So a lot of people were already calling bullpucky on that, right? But George and Kathy never recanted their claims. Even their children said some of those strange things did happen. Some.
Okay.
But when their kids grew up, both of the sons, Daniel and Christopher, said that George had invited that demonic activity into their home because he was into the occult.
Oh my gosh.
They said he was obsessed. He was reading about it, trying to summon spirits. And they believe that he invited demonic activity. And then some of that strange stuff happened. And then when they got with that lawyer, they blew it up into this other big story because a murder had happened there. And so they did say that like, sometimes the windows would open on their own and stuff like that. But they said George just exaggerated the rest and made up a bunch of sensational claims to turn a profit.
Wow. Oh, I mean, I can believe that. I can see that for sure.
I think that's absolutely what happened, honestly. George and Kathy did go on to have 2 more daughters together before they divorced in 1980. Christopher, I believe he was the younger son, he changed his surname in order to get away from the notoriety of the whole thing. George died in 2006 from heart disease. Okay. Kathy died in 2004 from emphysema. And then as for Ronald DeFeo Jr.
Yes, that's who I want to know.
He died in prison in 2021.
Good.
Yep. And his cause of death was not released to the public.
And how old was he?
Somewhere around maybe 70.
Okay.
The house has changed owners several times since all of that went down. And not due to paranormal activity like you might think.
Okay.
Mainly due to the sideshow that this cult following of the movie had introduced.
Oh, I bet.
Owners said that nothing spooky has happened at all in the house. It's just unnerving when so many gawkers are showing up to your house.
Right.
And
especially interested in that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. They even, like the house has changed colors. They even went as far as to have the address changed So people
Okay.
looking it up couldn't find the exact one. But that has not deterred these macabre enthusiasts for 1 second. And they're, it's harassment almost.
Yeah.
One set of owners actually said people would steal their shingles.
My gosh. Trying to get a piece of.
Yes. Ring their doorbell and ask for Ron DeFeo Jr. And then trespassers even ripping out chunks of their lawn.
Oh my gosh. People are weird.
They are nuts. There are actually many people out there who still believe all that haunting and stuff happened. And there are many who don't.
Right. Well, I think if there was anything, that they probably did invite it in.
We do know that 6 horrific murders took place in the house. And, some say that the house remembers, but I don't really buy that. I just say that's a fact that no superstition can explain away.
Right. Right.
All the hubbub around that story has created a ton of urban legend, controversy. I do believe that George probably invited it in, and there was some demonic activity going on. And I do think he probably then exaggerated things. I didn't tell you this. There is some speculation that they bought this house they couldn't afford and the taxes on it. When they realized, well, we can't really pay for it, they made the story up not only to get rid of the house and give it back to the bank, and not
They had a plan.
but then they can make a little money off on the side too.
Okay, that would make sense.
Yeah. So
Wow. Oh my gosh. So I've never told you this. You can choose to leave it in or leave it out because I don't ever tell anybody this.
okay.
But I'm going to tell you now.
Okay.
And you know how I am. You know how leery I am to believe stuff. But so you're going to think I'm crazy. But right after Memphis was born, so we lived in a trailer park, just a normal trailer park, nothing that I know of. There was a graveyard down the road, but I mean, it was, I guess, at the end of the little trailer park thing, but nothing I ever cared about or thought anything about.
Right.
And it was kind of a sad time, like a bittersweet time. I had my baby, but it was just a sad time. And I had these letters out that Memphis's dad had written me. And I had them in the living room area, and I was in the bedroom area, and over in this other room is the bathroom where I could see into it. So I'm in the bedroom laying on the bed with the baby, and I just hear this knocking sound, almost like I can hear cabinets open and shut, except I can see right there. It was in the bathroom. And there was nothing opening and shutting. It was just the noise. And so you know how it is. You're like, oh, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that.
Your mind tries to explain it away.
But it did but I'm I hear it right there. And then it was just kind of getting louder. And then I heard the same thing in the kitchen to the point where I knew somebody was there. But the door was locked and I was there by myself. So I got up and I walked in there, and every bit of that stuff that was in that box was out all over the floor.
Oh, wow.
So I left.
You were probably scared.
It scared me. And I was like, you know how you'll tell yourself. But anyways, I called my mom at work.
I was getting ready to say, what did your mom say?
Yeah, I called my mom, and she was like, get back home and do your, whatever I was supposed to be doing. And I was like, I'm not going back over there. I was scared. I either thought somebody had somehow got in, or it just didn't make any sense. So later on, she comes home and she calls me to come home. So I did. Now, she did not tell me this for months, because this kind of stuff continued to happen to the point where I was like, I could see how somebody could go crazy.
So it wasn't just the one time.
No. What I later found out was when my mom came in that day, the TV was on full blast static. And when she walked in the door, it said, "It's safe now." The TV. And it said, "It's safe to be in here now." And then it went back to full blast static.
Oh, wow. What did your mom do?
She also had a dream. We had, those artificial trees that everybody had? The plant kind of thing that they were kind of tall.
Yeah, like a ficus tree.
Yes. Well, in her bedroom, she could see into the living room. Well, she woke up and she could see a woman's head hanging from that tree.
Oh my gosh.
So she
dreamed
said she
that.
closed her eyes. I don't
Okay.
know. Like, she doesn't think it was a dream.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Then she closed her eyes and she like opened them back up and it was still there. And then she closed her eyes again. Now, we're not a family who, this is just not us. Like, this is nothing like this has ever happened.
Yeah.
And she didn't tell me because she knew how afraid I would be. Well, then she found out my brother had the same exact thing happen.
Oh, wow.
Except for the head wasn't hanging in the tree. It was a woman walking down that hallway. Somehow I found out about all this and I was like, I can literally see how people lose their minds and get put in insane asylums. I was like, we called somebody over.
It was driving you crazy.
It was driving me crazy. I was terrified to be home, but it was just enough to make you sound crazy with the stuff that you're saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because I had not seen anything and I just prayed. I was like, God, if I see something, I will go crazy. Like, please, please. We had somebody come and pray over the house. And they came and prayed. And I just remember that night, I decided I was afraid to like go outside. I was afraid to do anything. I was like, I've got to like just be okay. Mm-hmm. And I walked down to the end of the thing. I came back. Nothing ever happened like that to me again. Never had happened before. But for literally probably about a month and a half, we dealt with this.
Wow.
And it wasn't just me, although everybody was kind of trying to protect me because I was there most.
And you were scared.
And I was the one experiencing it. And my mom didn't want to be like, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, like, I found out.
I have to say, usually when people tell me stories like this, I'm listening and just nodding my head, but in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, you're crazy. But coming from you and your mom and your brother, I don't sit here and think those people are crazy because I just feel like y'all are not.
And there's no explanation for it. It's not like we know of anything that bad happened. It wasn't like something was on our mind.
Yeah.
It's not like we lived in a haunted house. We lived in a trailer park.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So still to this day, like, I can't look back and think anything that it would have been related to, except for like an oppression from maybe like really being like super sad.
Yeah.
Was the only thing in my life that I was dealing with. But I don't know.
So do you think that was like a demonic?
I do.
Yeah.
How many times have we had conversations like this and I've never brought that up?
You've never brought that up.
Because it sounds crazy. And if somebody were telling me that, I would think it was crazy. But I do think you know me now.
You're right.
Well enough to know I'm not just going to make something like that up.
Right. I'm not just like blowing you off like, she's a little flaky. Now I'm like, wow. And plus I know your mom and your brother. So I'm like, I don't see y'all being all three in the same agreement about something that's not really true. Yeah.
Those were some hard times.
Those sure were.
I had seen Amityville Horror a few times as a kid, but I never knew growing up that it was based on real-life mass shooting. So I was watching a YouTube documentary on it, and the fella said it was weird that Ronald DeFeo went to a bar afterwards. Now, I don't know what you're supposed to do after you murder your entire family for fun, but I feel like going to have a beer would be the only logical thing. And it's a proven scientific fact that if our podcast had existed in the 70s, that whole situation might have been different. So if you don't want to find yourself sitting at a bar telling your friends what you think happened to your family, you make sure you're listening to every single episode of Hard Times and True Crimes. You tell everybody you know, and a few people you don't, to check us out. Till next time, goodbye.